Let's talk COVID and fashion. Undoubtedly, the second wave of the coronavirus pandemic is having a huge impact on the fashion and luxury brand industry. Let's bring in a lawyer, fashion enthusiast, come Ralph Lauren connoisseur, and CEO Polo Ralph Lounge, Babatunde Allison. Babatunde, glad to have you join us on Newsday.
Good afternoon.
Good, fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Good. We know that the COVID-19 had a devastating effect on the aviation industry and transport in general. How has it been for the luxury and fashion industry?
Pretty much just like everything else, with the loss of jobs and the impact of the first wave of COVID, and now looking at the second strain coming through, the impact has been very grave on everybody, pretty much. In terms of fashion and also on the luxury line. So it's been really huge. It's been a lot of loss of jobs and, of course, revenue as well.
Okay, Babatunde, if you don't mind my asking, how does it feel to be termed Ralph Lauren connoisseur? Just out of interest, though, some people may have that impression that the people at the upper, echelons of society are above the hit of COVID-19. You know, what would you say to such people?
Oh, no, not really. Actually, the fact of the matter is, data has it that about $600 million will have been lost by the end or by the time that we grapple with the after effect of COVID. And it kind of like cascades down to everybody. So it's not like, top end or lower end. Fashion is fashion. Luxury brand affects everybody because you have to take note of the fact that there's also customer service, relationship management in what is in luxury brand. People actually want to feel the experience. They want to go into stores, they want to touch things, they want to travel. They want to have that feel-good effect about them, and that has been missing since COVID.
What's been your coping mechanism like?
Well, for the most part now, everybody has to survive, you really have to turn to technology. There are no two ways about it. If you look at the top brands, now brands are looking at, instead of doing fashion shows or runway shows, they're making sure that they do digital, to replace those things with digital side of it. And also to create a virtual experience for customers to, to be able to replace that with the touch and feel side of it. So the impact has been there, but there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, it certainly is. And just piggybacking on my colleague's question there in terms of coping mechanisms. I know I read about some luxury brands who were now adapting to creating things like loungewear in response to the fact that people weren't going out as much. So did you observe a change in behavioral patterns? Because we hear people were still attending Owambears even at the peak of the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely there's a change in the behavioral pattern. I mean, you can see that in Nigeria now. People are wearing matching outfits with their face mask. So that's a change. That's the first, and things like that are always going to continue till we eventually get rid of the virus. But as time goes on, there's also, I earlier mentioned that there's light at the end of the tunnel, because there's also the what is called the lipstick effect, which we, colloquially in Nigeria term as, I can't go and kill myself. So people are always going to come out. They will always want to feel good. But the demand has dropped, and jobs, businesses have closed. You also have to remember that particularly in Nigeria, we had NSAS. We had the NSAS protest. A lot of small businesses, mostly that are uninsured, they lost their businesses. So the impact, especially in Nigeria, Lagos, as it is, has been huge.
Has been huge indeed. But Babatunde, in the light of what one would call less expendable income, in the hands of maybe your people who patronize your kind of goods, how are you re-strategizing to stay in business, even if it's just staying in business until the coast is clear and then you can begin to make profit again?
Yeah, one of the things like I have deployed, like I said, is technology, and the second part is to also customer relationship management. Like we rely heavily also on Forex. So, you manage your customers as it were. You don't just arbitrarily increase the prices. Sourcing, you source more, you do a little bit of, just make sure it's not transactional. Just try to keep your customer base as tight as it is. Then, hopefully we all get out of this in one piece.
Hopefully we all get out of it.
I'd like to explore more of your lipstick effect. I'm just hearing it for the first time. I'm intrigued. Of your lipstick effect, you say philosophy.
It's understandable why you talk about
No,
lipstick.
it makes sense.
No, why you talk about lipstick, so it's understandable.
Okay, you understand the rationale. But let me go on with my question, so I don't lose my train of thought. If indeed, let's assume some of your clientele, the large proportion are women, and I hope I'm not being sexist here, and they indeed, maybe you may have explored whether their mental health of women is largely tied to the way they look. Have you managed to exploit this a bit more? Because during the pandemic, a lot of people suffered mental health challenges because they weren't able to do certain things that they would ordinarily have done. Have they now taken refuge in, sprucing up themselves a bit more?
The lipstick effect actually comes from the lipstick, which is technically believed that people tend to shop more after or during recession, just to treat themselves and make themselves look good. And after post-COVID, data has shown that the French brand Hermes in one day made a sale of about 1.2 million in a province in China, and also I think Louis Vuitton made a sale of about $22 million. Post-COVID. So, it's there, but it's just that, if you look at the Nigerian factor, the middle class is almost non-existent. But, people just have to manage one way or the other to just make sure that they make themselves feel good. And you also have to remember, having sat at home for this long, there are certain things that people normally do, which is like maybe eat out, watch movies and stuff like that. So sometimes, they have some loose money, they just have to prioritize.
All right, before we let you go, what feelers are you getting from your usual customers? How are you handling those feelers?
Price. It comes down to price. Whatever it is comes down to price. It's all about the money. So the thing with Nigeria particularly is the fact that we rely heavily on Forex. So there's little or nothing that you can do when it comes to the fact that you have to rely on currencies that is not in your hands. So it comes down to pricing. One has to be very price sensitive because, of course, the competition is very intense.
Thank you so much, Babatunde Allison. Thank you for being on Newsday.